Released in 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was a groundbreaking moment in film history, as the first full-length animated feature created by Disney. The story is widely known. A young princess is poisoned by the queen and falls into a deep sleep, only to be awakened by a kiss of true love. However, some fans challenge this happy ending. One theory suggests that Snow White never came back to life. When she bites the apple, she doesn't just faint, she dies. According to this idea, what we see after that moment might not be a living person, but her ghost. The apple takes on deeper meaning in this version of the story. Rather than simply being a plot device, it marks the turning point from which there's no return. Across many cultures, apples are symbols of temptation, forbidden knowledge, and death. A well-known example is the biblical tale of Adam and Eve, where the fruit leads to the loss of innocence. In Disney's film, the poisoned apple plays a similar role. It doesn't just silence Snow White, it seals her fate, perhaps permanently. In the film, the poison in the apple is portrayed as deadly, with no apparent physical antidote capable of reversing its effects. The moment Snow White takes a bite, she collapses instantly and falls into a deep, unresponsive state, which many interpret as a clear metaphor for actual death. Unlike other Disney stories, there's no visible magical mechanism or logical explanation for what happens next. The narrative jumps directly to the prince's kiss, without offering any clear reasoning behind this resolution. This lack of a tangible cure raises a provocative question. What if the poison truly killed her? In this context, the kiss wouldn't be a literal remedy, but a symbolic act. It would represent Snow White's spiritual transition, not a physical awakening, but a passage into eternal peace. The idea that true love can transcend death is a common motif in fairy tales, and in this story it may have been used in a far darker and more haunting way than we usually realize. The moment the prince kisses Snow White is often viewed as the ultimate symbol of true love, but within this darker interpretation, the meaning shifts entirely. Rather than awakening her from deep sleep, the kiss acts as a symbolic rite that finalizes her transition into another spiritual realm. In many mythologies and fairy tales, a kiss is more than a romantic gesture. It's a key that unlocks the soul from the physical world. In this context, the prince may not be a traditional romantic hero at all. He could be seen as a spiritual guide, perhaps even an angel or a gentle reaper, whose purpose is to escort Snow White beyond the realm of the living. His calm demeanor, ethereal entrance, and almost otherworldly presence add weight to this idea. Instead of reviving her, he's releasing her from the physical body and guiding her into peace. Further supporting this theory is the reaction of the Seven Dwarfs. When the prince takes Snow White away, they don't show confusion or disbelief. Instead, they let her go with a mix of joy and sorrow, as if they understand that their role has come to an end. They aren't welcoming her back to life, but rather witnessing her final passage into another state of being. The final scene of the film stands out as one of Disney's most iconic endings. In it, the prince carries Snow White on his white horse, traveling toward a distant castle resting above the clouds. From that moment on, everything takes on a dreamlike quality. The environment feels detached from reality, as if crafted to resemble something more heavenly than earthly. The sky glows with an unusual light, the clouds form a gentle path, and the castle appears almost weightless, as if floating in the air. For those who believe Snow White didn't survive, the castle isn't a physical place, but a symbolic one. It represents a spiritual realm, a visual metaphor for paradise or an afterlife, where the soul finds peace. This interpretation adds a more solemn layer to the ending, reframing it not just as a rescue, but as the princess's final release from suffering, reaching a state of calm beyond the world she knew. The Seven Dwarfs play a vital role in Snow White's journey, and under this interpretation, their purpose becomes even more meaningful. They can be seen as spiritual guides tasked with ensuring her safe passage between realms. Though each dwarf has a distinct personality, together they act as a unified force, offering shelter, protection, and companionship, staying by her side until the prince arrives to take her away. Their presence takes on a mystical quality. When Snow White falls into her death-like sleep, the dwarfs respond not with chaos or disbelief, but with calm acceptance, as if they've always known their purpose was to help her through a larger, unseen transition. Their behavior suggests a quiet understanding of a greater spiritual process at work. Meanwhile, the evil queen's magic mirror stands out as one of the film's most ominous elements. From the start, it exudes a ghostly aura, with its deep, echoing voice and shadowy presence. But what if the mirror's role goes beyond feeding the queen's vanity? What if it's a supernatural entity that not only foresees Snow White's death, but helps set it into motion? The mirror's tone is always composed, yet carries an eerie gravity, as if delivering more than just information. When it proclaims Snow White to be the fairest of them all, there's no admiration, only a dark certainty, as though her beauty is tied to a tragic fate. This opens the door to a new interpretation. The mirror isn't just a prophet, but an active force ensuring the story story unfolds toward its inevitable end. Seen this way, the mirror could be understood as a reaper-like figure. It subtly pushes the queen to act, fully aware that the poisoned apple will be fatal. Its omnipresent darkness and calm, haunting tone suggest it plays a direct role in guiding Snow White toward her spiritual conclusion, not merely observing fate, but shaping it. Color plays a critical role in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, creating sharp visual and symbolic contrasts between purity and corruption, life and death. Every hue in the film supports the deeper narrative layers, especially when viewed through the lens of a spiritual journey. The poisoned apple stands out as the film's most powerful visual symbol. Its vivid red isn't arbitrary. Across many cultures, red is linked to temptation, danger, and sin. When Snow White takes a bite, the moment signifies more than a loss of consciousness. It suggests a passage into another state of being. The act mirrors the biblical fall from Eden, where the pursuit of forbidden knowledge leads to the loss of innocence. In this reading, red becomes the marker of Snow White's transition from earthly life to a spiritual existence. Throughout the film, Snow White is often shown wearing light-colored clothing, especially white. This reinforces her image as pure and untouched. Even after her apparent death, she remains dressed in white inside the glass coffin, a visual that emphasizes her spiritual integrity and readiness for transcendence. White also evokes peace, sanctity, and heaven, aligning her character with spiritual elevation. The theory that Snow White becomes a ghost reframes the entire narrative. The apple becomes a gateway, not a curse. The prince's kiss transforms into a spiritual release rather than a revival. The distant castle in the clouds ceases to be a romantic destination and instead symbolizes a sacred resting place. And the Seven Dwarfs, rather than mere companions, become spiritual guardians guiding her toward that final journey. This interpretation alters the meaning of the film's ending. Happily ever after may not refer to life restored, but to death accepted, a calm, eternal peace. The final scene no longer signals a return, but a release from suffering. So, what did you think of this darker take on Snow White? If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out the videos on the end screen. There's a lot more to explore if you love diving deep into Disney's hidden layers. See you next time.